Well, he'll come, honey. He's just checking his guitar. He'll come. There's a couple of things we have to do first, okay? I want to welcome you all to the third session of MAP. Today's session is, we're going to start with the prayer, and we're going to be doing the fullness of life in the neighborhood. So we'll open up with the prayer. So if we all can say it together, that would be lovely. Living God, bless this gathering, and that through listening and discussing, you will make done and your mission embraced. May our dreaming be creative and hope-filled. May the pathways we discern allow all to flourish in this amazing life you call into through the way, the wisdom of Spirit, and your unconditional and abiding love. Amen. So, I'm Beth Kerley, and my sidekick is in Australia enjoying visiting her sister, and she'll be back for the next one, and I'm unfortunately going to be away for that one. But I think what we'll start is remind ourselves of our norms. We are going to have a time of discussion, so our norms will be to have openness in anticipated Jesus' presence when two or more are gathered in his name. We want to be respectful and listen to each other. And we want to understand that if we sit and there's no words, then silence, that is okay. Be honest with your answers. And we want to hear where God is calling us to go next in the next few years of our time at Transfiguration. So at the beginning of the session, we were giving this snapshot tool, and I'll ask my little helper, wherever he disappeared to. Where's my little helper? Oh. I will hand these out. I give you helper, Beth. I give you helper. So as you completed the fullness of life in the neighborhood snapshot tool, there are some things that we would like to discuss with this. So I think for this little section of this exercise, we will, you can maybe talk amongst yourselves here for a little bit, and we'll answer some of these questions for that. And this exercise is going to take about 10 minutes. So I handed these out for you just to have so you can refresh your minds on the one that we had sent out on the email. Twice we sent them out to you. So when you did this at home, what struck you about the community engagement culture in our parish? Well, the community culture is basically what we do here in our parish with regards to our neighborhood. Are we well aware of it amongst all of us? I know I'm not because I think some of we've done this before, so it's basically some of the exercises that we have done with regards to programming that we've had. For instance, I'll say the St. George's Breakfast Program, people are involved in some of those. I think we're also the Brock, we have in the past been helping them in so forth. A lot of community care work, we've done an awful lot that those parts, but we haven't done some of these things in a while. And some of we have done through COVID, like community care we have done through COVID. So the next slide would be, What are we doing that is currently deepening our own connection to God in the world? And I'll say the fifth slide is what are our community engagement strengths? And the sixth slide would be what are our growing edges in community engagement? So what I would suggest is, we can put that back up, Catherine, if you wouldn't put back up to the fourth slide. And if people wanted to talk amongst themselves about some of these three questions, and then we'll get back together in about 10 minutes.
So what I'll do is I'll put each slide up for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'll transfer through and you can see it.
That's very fine, thank you so much. You can take one. Yes, you're supposed to gather in groups. Small groups. So you can go, there's a group here, you could. Here, it's your Brian. Brian. She wasn't even at church this morning. She just came in all together. I'm just trying to think. I think the last name is. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to switch to the next question, everyone, if you want to have a look at the screen.
The next, what are community engagement strengths? The question is, what are our community engagement strengths? mean, here you and I wear masks, and I know where there are congregation members that they look for. Until you.
You did it. Trust me.
Yeah, so I'll just,
I know.
I know.
So far, I thought we were done. Thought we were done.
Yeah, but could you imagine how? Yeah, you guys have both been in the hospital. And you're still getting another 1%.
Negative.
Yeah, but I mean, your energy levels. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, we'll change to the next slide. Where are our growing edges in community engagement? Okay, we'll wind this down in about another minute, and then I'd like us to share our conversations with the rest of the group for each of these questions. If you don't mind doing that. Oh, Catherine, can we have slide number 4, please? Now, as a group, what are we doing that is currently deepening our own connection to God in the world? And if you have to say something, Lindsay will give you the microphone to share.
Who wants to start?
Well, we're obviously worshiping very well. We are obviously worshiping very well. Lots of good music.
Teacher's pet.
Flattery will get me everywhere.
Wonder sometimes the definition of we, like individually or as a church or, yeah. Yeah, what kind of a we?
The we, I think, is the church. What are we and Transfiguration doing? And I would also say yourself, like you're part of the our church. What are we at Transfiguration doing?
We do have a prayer group that are praying all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
The message and the focus of our rector in her sermons.
The family focus. Yay.
And the prayer shawls.
I volunteer at the St. George's Breakfast Program, and I find for me that helps me remind where God is at work in the world and how God is at work in the world and who God is at work in the world with, and some of the needs that are out there.
I find that by going out for a walk, maybe Port Dalhousie, sitting on a bench beside somebody that I don't even know, and being able not to judge but to listen is a great connection for me and towards God.
Now at my age, I'm limited to what I can do physically, but can you hear me?
Yeah.
I guess that's better. But I say, now that I'm older, I'm pretty well trying to keep a good connection to God, but I feel I'm able to give a good portion of my income to the needy, to community care, to the charities here, the health share. And I think if you can't get out and physically do work and help people that way, I think you can give them some of your money, and they need it. Thank you.
What are our community engagements? Oh, sorry. I didn't see
Okay, I
that.
was just going to say that I said in our group that I kind of struggle with the concept of community or neighborhood outreach as it's outlined in this document, because we're a bunch of people that come from all over the city, land in here on Sunday morning, worship, and then go home again to our homes, which are all over the city. And I don't think we have a really good sense of what the community. So, a lot of this stuff is about, do you. We can see where God is at work in our neighborhood. We participate in community activities with our parish as partner. We host gatherings in our community. We pray for our neighbors and neighborhood issues. Well, are we talking about the neighbors of our parish, the community around our parish, or are we talking about our own individual neighborhoods or our own individual, communities? Because gone are the days when you had a parish, which was a defined geographic area, and you had a parish church in the center of that, and that church was the center of the community and the hub of the community activities, and everybody knew. That's sort of like 1950 New York City, right, where St. Somebody's Church was the center of that parish, and everybody knew everybody in that parish, and the people that lived around you and were the people that came to your church, and it's not that way anymore. So we're talking about a widespread kind of diverse group of communities and neighbors, rather than, and I guess one of the questions is, if we want to engage the community, what are our community engagements? What community are we talking about? We're talking about the community at the corner of Glendale and Glenridge, like the people around us here. Who are those people?
The fact that it's spread out allows us to spread the word further out too, because we are from different communities. I just say, just that, I forget what I said. Just the fact that we are from different areas of the city or different cities, the fact that we can take our beliefs, whatever, further out. It's not just a tight community anymore.
Thank you. I had the same concern, as did the members of the group that I spoke with, about what is actually our neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it was brought out that we are the only Anglican church west of the 406. Our neighborhood just got a whole lot bigger. I was thinking, I'm in Power Glen a lot of the time, and there's no Anglican church out there that's working. So, I think it's important that we look both at our immediate neighborhood, what we're doing here, and the concern of us all coming on Sunday, disappearing into our church, and then leaving and going away again is a really big thing. What are we doing out in the yard? What activities are we doing out in the yard? We could be doing a lot of things in the nice weather, and maybe when the snow comes, we could do some fun things out there too. So all of these things came up in our discussion about what actually is our neighborhood.
Can we sing Who Are the People in Your Neighborhood?
In our little group here, Barb referred to our strength in this community as diversity, and I said, wow, I was thinking exactly the same thing. And we were talking about what is neighbor. Like we're thinking, is it right around here and all this? But Barb brought up, okay, but widen it. How about the reading from this morning? Who is our neighbor? It's everyone, right? So if you really broaden the definition of neighbor, and then I said, well, we come from all over. Like we come in from Niagara on the Lake, Barb's coming from Welland, they're coming from the West End, we're coming from, a few people are in the neighborhood, but mostly we're coming from all over. And why? So I said, why? Why are we coming from all over here? And as Byron was saying, every church, every Anglican church, every church has its own flavor, its own, unique culture. But we here have been welcoming to people, diverse couples, diverse sexuality, diverse nationalities, whatever, mental illness, whatever. We embrace whoever comes. And in fact, I've just been thinking quickly about all this. Rather than us focusing perhaps on the neighborhood, which is bombed for years and years and years, we've had these discussions, maybe look at what our strength is and why are we here and how can we broaden our effective reach to people similar to us or part of diverse communities that may not be finding a welcoming home in other churches. So I'm just saying maybe we should flip our idea of neighborhood, flip our idea of what our strength is, and the neighborhood is way out there, and there are people who are not finding a welcoming church home for a variety of reasons, right? Feeling excluded. I don't know where exactly we go with that, but it's a good thought.
I think Karen, you're answering basically the next question. What you just said is, where are our growing edges in our community engagement? And you've just chatted about that, about the diversity, and we're cutting edges of some of those things.
So when Jesus talks about neighbor, he has the great story of the Good Samaritan, right? And so what is a good neighbor? Somebody who shows mercy. Not necessarily that somebody lives next to you. Just like Karen says, where do we see need? And how can we meet that need and reach out to those in need?
I think I've said this before, but it bears repeating. Following on the point that each church has its sort of own ethos or culture, for many years, this church was known as the progressive one and the affirming one. Those edges are fading a little bit because other churches are kind of coming on board and asking a few questions. But I mean, you got to remember that you had Isa here and Robin and living the questions, and that's why we were drawn here. So got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, thank you, Wayne. And that drew to my memory another really important thing that Barb brought up. It's not just diversity and who we are as people and couples and nationalities and all this kind of stuff. It's diversity of our beliefs that draws us and is it's an enigma, kind of. It's not the fact that we all believe a very exactly word for word same thing that brings us together. It's the fact that we are an accepting community and accept where we all are, anywhere, wherever we are in the spectrum of belief or the background of our belief or whatever struggles or wherever we are, the diversity of our belief system.
And actually, further to that, one of the things that I really noticed, it doesn't matter what our belief community was before personally, where we came from, but here we're accepted. My personal faith journey has been one of questioning. You give me something I'm supposed to know or do, and I'm asking about it. I'm trying to figure it out, how it fits with me. And that's okay here. It's not okay everywhere. And people out there are like me. I don't know how many, but they're out there. Certainly, it's important that people know that there's a safe place to come, regardless of where you're coming from in your faith journey.
Okay. Let us root our aspiration.
Can I share something quickly?
Oh, sorry.
So when we're talking about growing edges, we're talking about places where we can grow in our community engagement. And my suggestion would be a radical engagement with community issues, right? We're often a responsive parish. You know, we get asked for help and we respond. And this church community, I can tell you from experience working at the Step Center, that this faith community has been outstanding in its response to needs. So if someone tells you, you know, the breakfast program needs peanut butter, Step needs socks, like there is so much response. But what are we doing to identify needs in our community and create a response to those instead of just reacting?
I have another one.
You're getting all your steps in, Lindsay.
I'll make this brief, just from a personal viewpoint. This parish is such wonderful, caring community. The support that people receive when you're facing difficulties has been phenomenal. And with all of your prayers and well wishes and phone calls and whatever you've done in any way really makes a big difference. And I find that that's outstanding at this church. Not all churches are like that. So all that support that we have received, not just me, but Floyd as well, has been so wonderful. And being here has made a big difference. Thank you all.
I'm just looking at we participate in community activities with our parish's partners in the neighborhood. And I have to tell you, Cliff and I usually go, what's not really our neighborhood, but the Greek festival, which is wonderful. In our neighborhood, the Coptic church had an open house because they have finished building the actual structure. And the people there were so friendly. I can't even begin to tell you. They were very kind. They gave us a tour. A lot of it would be so familiar to you. I just think that it's a really big step. Like, of course, we probably go to Anglican things in Thorold, but to go to something that is a different culture, but the church is older than our church. The church in Egypt was about the first one to be founded after the Desert Fathers. I can't emphasize this enough, that if we want to know a little bit more about diversity, we should go to some of these events, because a lot of work was put into them, and I think we owe it to our neighbors and to ourselves to learn more about this culture. And that's all I wanted to say.
Maybe we can learn that within our own parish, because I know there's a lot of different cultures within our own parish.
Yes.
That maybe we can bring that into our church together and learn some of that.
All right, we'll have to move along because I promise you'll be out here in an hour. So let us root our aspirations and dreams in the scripture verse from Mark 12. He asked him, "Which commandment is the first of all?" Jesus answered, "The first is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is the one Lord. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. So some of these questions, I think we started getting involved in some of the answers you just started. But the first question is, what might God be calling us to add to our current practices that would restore our community relationships and enable us to better know our neighbors?
I think it was a wonderful coincidence that in the prayer that Sheila gave early in the service, I had the question about what are the important, or what are the most important commandments. Then I get up and I've prepared the same notion, and then I'm okay. So then you did it as well. So it shows a consistency of our core beliefs. And I thought at first when I saw this was happening, oh, I'll just take out that paragraph because it'll be boring to people to hear it twice. But that's not the case. We see what's important for us.
Yes.
Hi, Joan. Well, we talk about our neighbors. Well, is the terrace not our neighbor? And I know no one at the terrace. I know that we have a board that takes care of the terrace, but I know nothing about the terrace.
I didn't know anything about the terrace either until I became the secretary, so that is huge. They all are seniors. They obviously all do have needs of some degree. I know they used to attend our events at times, that we've had luncheons and stuff like that. Yes, yeah, and we had to put that off because of COVID. So, and I know a lot of them are suffering because of COVID. It was segregated from everybody. So it's true, though. We don't know enough about our own.
If I'm not mistaken, was the terrace not built for our people? Back in the day, I think it was. No, I thought it was.
There
Well,
were
people
some
did
wishes.
go there.
It was built, I can tell you. I'm a past president of the Terrace, and I think I was president for 20 some odd years. I'm not sure. I'm still a director. And in the very beginning, it was built to have low rental apartments if you qualify, and the qualifications were such to anyone that you had to be of a certain age, you had to have limited income, and we said if you have not quite sufficient, we're in a position that out of the 12 units, we can subsidize and help you pay your rent. We'll pay a portion, and as Kelly knows, it might be 20% or so on that. But anyone was welcome. Now, in the beginning, when we first opened it, we had several parishioners that qualified, and they had apartments there as long as they were around, let's say. Once they get a certain age and can't handle themselves, we have to keep an eye that they're able and not leave the stoves on and things like that. We're always concerned about fires and forgetfulness, so we have to talk to their sons or daughters or relatives and say, and it's our recommendation that perhaps you should consider moving them out because we're concerned. However, it's open to all, and I feel one of the big problems is we have difficulty filling the offices. Some of us, as I said, I've been in for 35 years, and the current president is looking for help. He would like to get out, but we just don't have the volunteers anymore from the church. And we would certainly welcome anyone that would be interested. Thank you.
We'll take anyone as a volunteer, and it's not a lot of work. There's like a couple meetings a year, and Kelly knocking on your door every week for a signature on a check. So really, there's not a lot to be a part of the board, but it is quite rewarding to be a part of that group.
I was just thinking that I had been on that board, but the other thing that I did that just popped into my mind is I interviewed every resident of the whole terrace. Remember when we had the newsletter coming out, and I interviewed, so I went right to their homes and I interviewed everybody that was in the terrace. But I don't think that anybody ever came to the church because of it, but they knew we were here. And we had the suppers and things like that, but I was thinking maybe I could do that again.
Started again to reintroduce people to the church. We also have the university as well. And I know for me, coming to this church as a music director, not just as a music director, but as a person, this is the first church that I've ever been able to come to and be open. So it was the first church that after my partner and I have been together for 26 years, and I have never been able to introduce her as my partner. And being in a leadership role as a music director, this means so much to me. So that's how powerful this church is in the community that we have here. So in terms of outreach, I know that there's a strong base at the university, very cultural, not only in the gay community, but all the other communities. And I think somehow if we're going to do outreach, can we reach those people and let them know that we're not just saying that we're open and welcoming, because some places do say that, but they're not truly open and welcoming. I have experienced that myself. That maybe we could do some of that outreach at the university because they are our neighbors and we have a lot of university students around here.
I'd just like to speak about the terrace. I think the government, municipal government, regional government should look at what people like us or Bob has done in the terrace, and if they'd use that for an example, maybe other parishes could open up and we'd have less homeless people sleeping on our streets, less people maybe lining up for food every day, because that terrace, those people there, if they didn't get the help that they're getting, would probably be out where you see people on the streets. And that's why I think the government, if somebody comes to my door asking for my vote, I'll remind them about homelessness.
Catherine, could we put up slide number 9, 10, and 11? I think we're going to do those ones together for time, because we're speaking about a lot of things that are coming onto the next couple questions. Yeah, what practices, what might we start that would speak into our growing edges? And we've started talking about that here. Just the next question is, how might we practice becoming more aware of God or shalom moments in our daily lives and in our neighborhood? And the next question that I'd like to deal with is, what might we do that would create space in which we could listen deeply to the people in our neighborhood? Oh, You.
So a couple of things have come to mind as you've all been chatting. One is there's just been an organization that started in Niagara called Niagara Community Fridge. And they set up community fridge locations around spaces that need them. And it's basically a plugged-in fridge and a pantry that would be accessible to the community. And folks come and access food items as they need. And, you know, folks can deposit into the community fridge as well. So it's a real sense of we're supporting food insecurity and supporting people with food security in our neighborhoods. And they basically are looking to find as many spaces as possible with identified needs. And given that our church is located right in student housing area, that would be huge. Brock does have a food bank, but it's limited. So the more we can do to help students who are often living in poverty, it would be wonderful. The other thing that came to my mind is that Silver Spire, which is a United Church, has a program that they offer for affirming churches, specifically LGBTQ affirming churches. And I'm not sure how that might translate to here, but it's like a course that we can take to develop the steps to become a certified affirming LGBTQ plus safe space. That was the other thing. And also, affordable housing is huge. And like, if we were ever to have the availability to purchase another building, or were gifted another building where we could subsidize rent for people, like the wait list for Niagara Region affordable housing for a single male is something like 12 years. The wait lists for affordable housing are in the neighbor of somewhere between 5 and 19 years, depending on what your demographic is. So people need homes. That's just, yeah.
For what might we do that could create space in which we could listen deeply to people? I'm thinking Messy Church is a good environment that is targeting more just young families, but we can kind of get to know people that way, and you know, if they raise any concerns or any needs or anything like that, we can.
That's good.
Something that we did at St. Thomas's Church was we started News from 9. It was the name of the newsletter we had, and it was focused primarily on environmental issues. So we had a space next to the offices where we had a store, and we sold soaps that are good for the environment. What else did we do? We encouraged reading books about the environment. So it was consciousness raising, and perhaps now those things sort of ran their course, and that was it. But I'm just wondering if some of those empty rooms down the hall could have bulletin boards with information on them. That's all I can say now.
One of the things that we talked about at the Children, Youth, and Family was having Brock students come and use our space for quiet study time. And that's an idea, too, of utilizing space. They could come down and just be very quiet. So some of the conversation has been started, so that's good, too.
If you contact BUSU, they're always looking for spaces for their clubs.
BUSU is Brock University Student Union. If you contact them, they're always looking for places, for spaces for clubs and things. So there might be an opportunity there to offer space here for students from Brock for certain activities. I was wondering about the food security thing. I was wondering what we know about the food security of the people in the terrace. Do we know whether they're struggling to afford food? Is there something we could do to help those that really are our next door neighbors in terms of food security? I don't know, just asking the question. Maybe the folks that are on the terrace board know that stuff, or maybe we don't know, or maybe we don't ask. I don't really know how involved we get in the lives of the people that live there.
There's a new chaplain at Brock, and we might be able to reach out to her about reaching out to Brock students. Somebody approached me a year or so before COVID, and it was a student from Brock, and they wanted to reach out to a church or an organization that could help. We could help them, and I gave them my number, and nothing ever came of it. So we have reached out to Brock in the past. But there's no saying we can't keep reaching out. But like I said, there is a new chaplain there, so she might be more than willing to help us out.
We had a program here before COVID. It was called, I think it was called Looney Tuesday or something like that. And we invited any Brock students, or any students, I guess, to come here, and with the help of other parishes, we did have dinners. Now, maybe someday in the near future we can return to that. I don't know, but it does take a lot of hands. It's a hands-on project, and one of the churches that helped us is now it's no longer in existence. So.
I actually have talked with Krista, because I just happened to see her in a meeting recently. She's the new Brock chaplain. And she did say that there are some things that they're looking at that they might need some volunteer help with, or maybe some financial help with. And I told her to reach out to us, and she said, I will. So that is good.
I was part of the people that helped feed the ones from the university. And the biggest problem was we sometimes had 8, we sometimes had 12. The only time we had a lot was when we had a turkey dinner for Christmas. Well, it was 2 weeks before Christmas. But we never knew how many were coming. And once we had to go out and buy more food because they just kept coming in. But it was never well attended at any time. Donald Brown was in charge then, like he was the rector, he was the spokesman. And we didn't do well, but we'd certainly try again if we had the people.
We're having a hard time finding people to help with the coffee.
Yeah. Okay, let us take a moment and ponder in silence with all the discussions that you have had. Please give some thought to the wonderings if there's anything we might have missed. If you give God some space in your head and your heart for the next minute or two, do you hear a call to explore any other practices or paths that we've missed? No, just quiet time for now. Hold on. Sorry. Shh, quiet. Slide number 13, Catherine. In which of these ideas do you most clearly see or feel the presence of God? Slide number 14. Which of these ideas draws your heart and soul? 15. Which of these ideas fit readily into the God-given gifts already at work in our midst? And number 16, which of these ideas invites us to grow our skills and knowledge before we launch them? And I'll open it for discussion.
It occurred to me that your electrical sign out there, I always read signs. I just love them, and they're inspiring. And that's a great resource that we probably don't use enough to let the neighborhood know what we're doing, right? Because it's often, it's a question of communication. How do we let them know what we're doing? And it's there.
Just let Sheila know, I think you need to let Sheila know if you want something up there, and then she will relay it to me, and I can get it up there for you.
Well, I'd like to talk to Kerley afterwards about the about the people. I feel called to go back again to the terrace, and that way you can kind of assess. But at any rate, it's a contact with them. And I found that there was never anybody that would, they knew I was coming. I have to have their names beforehand. And there was nobody that ever said, no, you can't come. In fact, I had a hard time getting away sometimes. So just maybe to assess how things are going there.
So anytime you undertake to do a project, a service project, the biggest mistake is not doing a needs assessment first. So we really need to know what the needs are in the community before you start thinking of ways to reach out and help people. So I wonder if there's a way that we could poll the community around us. Same idea? Yeah. Poll the community around us and see if see what the community needs were or are, and if anyone has any suggestions as to how we might help. I don't mean any of us has any suggestions. I'm talking about the people in the community. So we could certainly start with the terrace, right? And we could interview the people at the terrace. What are your needs? How could the church help you? Food security being only one of them, but we could design a tool. It could be paper, it could be electronic, it could be a hybrid model of both. We do have a website. We could open it to like a discussion bulletin board kind of thing, where people could log in and post ideas or needs or things like that. Are there needs? Do you have needs that Church of the Transfiguration might help you with? Are you aware that we're here? Do you know who we are? Are there ways that we could help you? What other things might we be able to offer that might be helpful for you where you live? And then the next question is how far do you cast the net? How wide do you cast the net, right? Are we talking about just like a few blocks in each direction? Are we talking about going beyond that? And how do you get that? How do you get that message, that request for information out to people? So those are just some ideas off the top of my head.
And just to add to that, Brian, I'm speaking from self-experience, is not being fearful to walk through that door and being judged. So how we can get that we are really an open, welcoming parish for all. We really are. People claim it, but they don't honor it, but I feel we do that here.
It's funny, Brian, that you focused in on having a tool or developing some kind of tool to assess. I'm actually starting a survey on my page. The first question is down there, and my focus was, where do we start? It's such a big community we have. We start at the terrace. We try to figure out through their eyes what their concerns are day to day, what they really, if time and money and all the things that we put up as barriers were no issue, how could we help you make your life better? Are there concerns you have day to day that if you had support from somebody that could be either eliminated, mitigated, changed in some way, then that's where we can start. And developing a tool to survey it, whatever that tool looks like, and to have ongoing discussion available to people would be it.
Doing it socially until, because I know that what they want to do is tell you all about themselves. So it wouldn't be just a one-shot thing. I think I have to, develop some connections, because there was nobody that ever turned me away and before you'd ever get into anything deeper than that. I just interviewed them to ask them about their life, and they would bring up some issues, but basically, I think for me, that's what I would feel very comfortable.
We might learn something from the terrace, that there's another community event that they could focus on that we could help out with. Yes.
I'm very pro Messy Church. You can tell where my focus often is, but I would say Messy Church is another one, right? We could have either a survey waiting for them, or just same thing, kind of getting to know these families that are coming from all around the community, and then slowly kind of suss it out that way.
Catherine, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say that there's an app called Nextdoor that allows neighborhoods to connect with one another, so that might be something existing that we could tap into for folks that are already connected that are within this geographical area.
Personal experience, I actually was asked to join. I was actually asked to join that app for a community that I belong in, and I did some research, and it's been found to be not so safe to use.
Yeah. Why? Well, I think we're going to be, unless there's anybody else needs to say anything more. First thing I want to do is thank you very much for all of you for coming and bearing with me being solo on this map journey today. My counterpart will be with you the next time. A couple of things next steps will be to report to Parish Council on our next Parish Council meeting. Sunday, October 16th is our final session for our MAP program before we do our written report to go to the diocese. Barbara and I will be getting that organized. And there'll be combined service, and there'll be lunch provided after the initial, the fourth session. Again, I thank you very much. There's a lot of lovely ideas and soul searching, and I think we have a lot of things that we can look to be doing. We can thank ourselves for all the stuff that we are already doing, but it looks like we've got some opportunities to go forward.
And thank you, Beth, very much for your leadership. And thank you, Catherine. Not only being slides, but also our secretary. Multitasking like we're
And if we all can stand, and we'll say our closing prayer together. Loving God, we give thanks for our time together, for carefully listening to one another and to the Spirit, for hopes and aspirations, for leaning more deeply into the way of Jesus, for intentions and developing habits that will bring us closer to you. Bless us as we leave this gathering, empowered by our longings, strengthened by our common life in you, and eager to be with your presence in the world. Amen. So we just need some help to put the chairs back, but thank you all again for coming and participating.